Okay, let's do another video. And the title of today's video is probably not one of the best known, but one better known quotes by Jung. And it goes like this: I thought she was crazy, but she was only highly intuitive. Let me read you what I wrote about this. And I posted it I've written it a few years ago, but I posted it again yesterday. And this is what I thought about this. My message especially rubs the wrong way the passionate extroverts, the family people, the intellectuals and the traditionalists. So you see, the intuition rubs the wrong way, what the message from the intuition rubs the wrong way, people that don't understand that you can speak in such a direct way. The institutionalized masses and the dedicated lovers who always must find their beloved not already in their heart, but still somewhere outside of themselves. Exactly. But it's those hopelessly stuck in childhood to the outside political and spiritual authority, the promise of life in some imagined and faraway heaven by religion, who need to overcome their fear to look within and become more introverted, more transparent to the inward feminine mystery seeking their attention, to let go of the tradition's conditioned ego and listen to the healing and transformative inner voice of the feminine intuition the most. I can tell you from my own experience that you have to excuse the rock and roll haircut today. You know, it's what's the time now? It's about 5 in the morning. Dogs are still asleep. Everyone's asleep. I'm awake, doing some work, and the voice is. I've had flu for the last couple of weeks, so the voice is a bit funny. But anyway, the intuition. You know, like Jung said, he thought she was crazy, but she was only highly intuitive. When you speak from your intuitive voice, when you speak from your inner voice, you're gonna speak directly. There is no fear there to say things that people don't want to hear. You're gonna go against the narrative. You're gonna go against things that people believe, traditions, especially the religious type. You're gonna go against all that. And people will dislike you. I can tell you from my own experience. When I said a few things that I had directly received in my dreams, you know, usually the response is either a smirk or they laugh behind your back. I have to close the app again. Or they will laugh behind your back, but that's not a reason to be afraid to speak. Sometimes talking directly is difficult, especially because we don't understand. In our Western culture, we don't have this tradition anymore. The tradition is lost of having the access to directly experiencing, to directly receiving answers in your dreams or visions or intuitively. So all this is feared. You know, our society has been overrun by the rational mind, the intellectual. You know, like I said to you, the human brain is composed of two halves. They're your opposites, if you like. So the left side of the brain is the intellect, the right side is the intuitive. So the left intellectual mind, the right intuitive mind, the creative. That's what's missing in our society. Completely missing in our society is the intuitive mind, and the intuitive mind, collectively or archetypally, is the feminine. and in our past, in our history, in our archaeology, in our archaeological findings, that mind, the intuitive mind, the feminine, is of course portrayed in the image of, in a symbol of a woman. You can see that behind me. I painted that in '96 spontaneously. There was no, there was no aim. I didn't know everything when I was doing it. I just knew that this is what has to come out. And she's standing at the center. That's the center. that we all have to travel through. So there are many people who have suffered in our society from being labeled crazy and lazy. I've been labeled lazy many times because the role of the male's role in our society is to work until you drop. So your poetry, your writing, your creative skills, things that I do, for instance, on the internet, on Facebook or Instagram, or videos for you right now on YouTube, they're not, these things are not considered as work suitable for a male. Male should be working out there somewhere, earning money, keeping the family, keeping paying for the needs of the family, keeping up the appearances, if you like. That's you've got to work until you drop. That's the image, the traditional image that the male has in his society, in our society. You're not allowed to be creative in any way. That doesn't earn you money, doesn't earn you respect in our society. So I had to, personally, I can tell you, I had to fight tooth and nail to be able to do this, especially the inner work. Take the time off to do the inner work. I had to go away. Like I write in my book, Where We Dream the Single Dream. I had to leave early because I knew, and do my own thing because I had to do my own thing. I had to do the creative part, I had to do the searching part, I had to do the inner working part. That is the hardest part. Is where you have to do the inner work. And you can't explain to people what you're doing. You don't, because you don't know what you're doing. You're just following a trace. You're following intuitive need within you, in your dreams. Excuse me. You might have an insight in your dream that says this is what you have to do. It comes from within you. How can you explain that to people that don't understand? Even back in the day where people might have understood a little bit, it still is something radical to do. Withdraw yourself from society and then lock yourself up in a place somewhere at home and start doing the inner work. Like Jung did. How many years was he away? Was it 10 years? When he was working with alchemy, he didn't know what the end of it was, or what the goal was. It just happened while he was there, while he was doing. That's how it happens when you do your inner work. You don't know what the end is. I mean, we know now that it's the end, is the whole purpose is to find the center, live from the center, and then allow this connection to the spirit, to the soul, to teach you who you really are, what everything is, the interconnectedness, the divinity and interconnectedness of everything. But when you start off, like I started off, like I write in the book, I didn't know. You follow the clues. And how can you explain that to people? You can't. So, like the title says, like Jung said, I thought she was crazy, but she was just highly intuitive. There are many people in our history, in our tradition, Western, especially known in Western tradition. I've written a few so I can remember, who suffered from being labeled crazy or lazy or some other label because you don't fit into what the society is asking of you to do. The traditionalist goals, the religious goals, the political class is asking for you to work and pay the taxes. You're not allowed to do anything else. Otherwise you're going to be marginalized. I've been marginalized since the 90s, really. So anyway, so we got remember the story of the woodcutter that I told you so many times, I think in the past, where he went to pick up wood and he heard through an open window someone was reciting the sutras, the Buddhist sutras. There's no mind, there's not this, there's not that. And then suddenly, in an instant, he got it. He was enlightened. He got it, what the whole message was about. Get out of your own way, and then something happens. He goes into a monastery, and then in this Buddhist monastery, the old abbot is retiring, and he's looking for his replacement. So he creates a competition. Whoever writes a verse on the wall, the best verse on the wall will be the winner. And this young chap, Huneng is his name, he's put into work in the kitchen, and the best the best student, the one that everyone expects to win, writes on the wall something, something, something. I have it somewhere. I'm not going to look for it now. And Hu Neng comes out of the kitchen, asks his friend to read it for him because he can't read. The friend reads it for him, says, "What? Okay, now write this next to it." In essence, it says, what mind? What do you have to clean? What mirror do you have to clean when there is no mind? That was the answer. The abbot comes, he reads the illiterate boy's poem or verse, angrily wipes it off with his slipper. The next day he calls the boy to his quarters, gives him a begging bowl and a signature of the office, and he says, "Now go away." Why didn't he give him the job? Obviously the boy won. He knew what the answer was in Buddhism. Get out of your own way and something else is going to come. Intuitively. You have to be you have to be crazy, intuitively crazy, as you would be labeled. Because why? Because the rest of the students weren't ready for this type of work, this type of consciousness. They still had to practice, they still had to have laws and traditions, and they still had to have scripture, they had to read and memorize. They weren't ready for direct experience. This would have finished off not only his idea, the new Hu Neng's way of directly receiving, would have finished the monastery and put the abbot out of the job. So he sent them off. Go away, you're not needed here. You're gonna destroy this institution. Because you don't need the institutions, it just happens within you. It happens directly. Another example is, of course, Jung. Jung was, we have the Jungian society, the Jungians, right? But Jung was liked and he was hated just as much because of the way because of what he taught. He also taught people that if you have your access to the spirit, to the inner self, he would call it, you don't need me, he would say. I remember one chap arrived at Jung to see Jung, and he saw him. I think it was in Kunstadt, in Switzerland. He saw him, and then this chap told him about his dream that he had. Jung listened, and he said to him, "Look, just listen to your inner self. Just listen to that message, to that information that you have already within you, directly receiving. You don't need me." And he sent him on his way. I keep touching the screen because I'm recording on an old phone, and and he sent him on his way. So it's a real problem. Another example would be perhaps Maria Gimbutas. Maria Gimbutas was also hated for her direct experiences, that she gave us the culture of the old Europe, of the goddess. She invented the mythology together with archaeomythology, yeah. And they couldn't understand how she could make these conclusions, but she made them by studying mythology. She knew what she was doing, So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm a little bit running out of time, so it'll be a shorter video today. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.